Everyone should be able to see my screen. If you have any problems with that, again, just let me know. While we do this webinar today, I'm going to be using our website ChartFlow, but you do not need to be one of our customers to get the most out of these teaching ideas for how to incorporate math into your health education classroom or your nursing classroom. You can use any EHR that you have, or you can use just a paper chart if you use paper information for patient scenarios. Google Docs, Excel, any of that, please steal my ideas, pass them out, give them to your friends, give them to your coworkers. After this, not only will I send the recording of the webinar, but I will also send you a link to our blog that has some more information and any of the formulas that you would typically use in a med math classroom that you can give to your students or, again, anyone who might be interested. Today, we're going to be doing 3 ideas with your med math. We're going to go from easiest to slightly more complicated, but nothing too bad. And all of these are designed to replace the practice portion. So typically you'll see students get a list of some different problems to work out on their own, doing just calculations. And that doesn't always work for all students because they're looking for something a little bit more realistic, especially when you have those students that struggle a little bit with math. So we're going to talk about making that practice a little bit more realistic so it feels like the real thing and not just like they're sitting at their desk crunching numbers, because that can be difficult for people. I'm going to be using this patient, Maria de la Cruz. If you have ChartFlow, you can use this exact activity. It's available for anyone to use, both the patient and the activity itself. We don't need to read through all these instructions right now because I'm going to be talking about the ideas. But if you were to use this activity yourself, the instructions are already there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this patient chart. And once we have this open up, you can see it is 8 o'clock. That'll come into play later. But so out of my 3 teaching ideas, I like to start nice and easy because, like I said, sometimes you have those students, especially if you're at the LPN, LVN level, or if you're teaching CNAs, they may not have had a lot of math in their high school or technical school experience, or they might not have a strong foundation in that. So I'm going to start with our vital signs. I just want to make sure that we have your multiplication, your division, and your conversions down before we get into IVs, because we don't want to start them on the hardest part. So this activity, you can do it in a classroom setting. We can go ahead and we can do this as homework, as a lecture, or in a skills or simulation lab setting. What we're going to do is we're going to do some conversions here. So I have a patient. One set of vital signs has already been taken on them. If you're doing this as homework, the only thing the student has to do is go in and record a new temperature, height, and weight. The thing is, this is a European clinic, so we're going to need to do it in the metric system and Celsius. If you're doing it in a skills lab or a simulation lab, go ahead and have them take vital signs and tell them that the temperature, weight, and height are going to stay the same. We just need to record those in the metric system. And those instructions are right here if you need to see them. But so what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and come in here and we're going to put a new entry in for our vital signs. And I'm just going to go down and fill them out. So this is where your students, they might have an extra sheet of paper where they can do this. It's up to you if they're allowed to use calculators or not. They'll use their calculations to go ahead and figure out that this is going to be 37.2 Celsius. So they're going to do that math of when you take the Fahrenheit, which we have 99 degrees, we're going to subtract 32 from it, take that whole thing and times it by 5/9. And if your students don't know that calculation or that formula, like I said, we're going to have a blog post that you can direct them to, but that's something that should have been covered either in a workbook, their textbook, or a lecture beforehand. We're going to come down, and if this was a lab setting, they could do the other vital signs for real to practice. And then we have your weight and your height. So again, this is just good practice. So we're going to convert that weight from 65 pounds. We're going to get it into kilograms, 29.5. I did do these calculations beforehand because I did not want to make a mistake on video. So they should be accurate. We took that 65 pounds and you are going to multiply it by 0.453 kilograms. You can also go the other way and do the division. Okay, we also have your height here was originally in inches. A lot of times they'll be feet and inches. We're going to convert this to centimeters, so metric system. And same thing here, we're going to put in the centimeter measurement, which would be 160.02. I'm going to round to 160. So you can see in this, and that was just your inches, 63 times 2.54. So you can see in this, we're actually reviewing a lot of different skills. We're doing the med math, which is important, but we're also doing it in the context that you would actually use it in a healthcare setting. We're doing it with real units of measure. We're doing it using calculations that are important. We're doing it related to vital signs. None of this is just made up nonsense. It is going to feel a little bit more realistic. And if they are doing it while also taking blood pressure or counting respirations, we're giving them a more realistic workflow. Okay, so that is how I'm going to hit save. That's just how we're going to warm up. So that's our first level of med math that we're going to practice. Now we're going to do a little bit harder. We're going to come into our orders and we're going to deal with medications, which is where it can get scary. But before we get to IVs, which is the real scary part, we're going to do the easy medications. And when I say easy, I mean really easy. So we're going to come in here and I have 2 orders on this patient. These are designed to be done in their heads, no calculators needed, no phones needed. So if you're in a skills lab, that is fine. They don't need any devices. We have lisinopril and ibuprofen in here. So lisinopril, we can see they're given in 10 milligram tablets, but the order that is ordered on here is 30 milligrams. So I would suggest doing this as a skills or simulation lab. Even if you don't have the time to get in the sim lab, or let's say you are a medication aid program, you can just do this in your classroom. Get some Tic Tacs, get some medication dispensing cups, get some gloves, and just have them do the lisinopril. How many tablets of this are you giving? They should figure out that that's 3. So very easy math, right? 10, 10, 10, 30. We're going to come down to the ibuprofen. Similar concept. You can do this with real medication or simulation medications. So if you use something like Walker or Pocket Nurse, you can use those, or you can use Tic Tacs or whatever the case may be. We have ibuprofen for 800 milligrams, but we can see the ordered amount is only 400 milligrams. So this is where now they're going to need to cut it in half. And this is why it's good to bring in the med math into a skills setting, because dividing doses can be really scary for a lot of nurses or healthcare professionals the first time they have to do it, which I know sounds silly if you do this all the time, but just the dexterity of managing the medications, cutting them properly, using proper hand hygiene, all of that can be very overwhelming. So when we put it in a lab with the med math, it doesn't feel like doing calculations. It feels like doing nursing or medication administration. And now they're not, if you do have students that are a little bit more nervous about math, now they're not thinking about it like math. Okay, so we do have those. Now we're going to take it to level 3. We're going to talk about IVs, drip rates, the scary stuff, at least for some students. You might be a math whiz and your students might be math whizzes, and it's not scary for you, but I do know a lot of students find this intimidating. So I have an order in here, and it is for ceftriaxone, 2,000 milligrams or 2 grams. It's going to be given via IV, and it's diluted in 100 milliliters normal saline to be infused over 30 minutes. I put this in as an order under other medication because I wanted to clearly write out this information in the form that I would give my students. However, if you're using ChartFlow, just be aware that our formulary does have like a dozen different forms of ceftriaxone in them. So you don't have to create your own. I just wanted to be able to control every bit of how this order was written. Which, if you use our site and you would like to put in your own orders, you can also do. What we're going to do, though, is I want to go to our MAR. I don't want to deal with the order section right now. I'm in my MAR now. What your students should do is, again, we're going to incorporate all aspects of nursing and medication administration. First, we have to decide which of these medications are we giving. We already talked about lisinopril and ibuprofen. We see it's 8 o'clock right now. Both of those are due. And also your ceftriaxone is due because it's ordered stat. So we need to give that. So when we do it, we're going to click in here. And I'm going to point out before I do that. In our instructions I showed you in the beginning, we have these instructions at the bottom. They are before you open the activity as well. If you're doing this on a piece of paper, just tell your students this beforehand. For the IV, I'm specifically asking students to write in the notes the infusion rate in milliliters per hour, the drip rate, drops per minute, and the concentration in milligrams per milliliter. So they're going to need to do 3 different things with this IV. And again, it's just like real life. You're going to have to work with all these numbers when you're setting up infusion pumps or dealing with IVs. So we're going to come in, and when you give a medication in our site, you go ahead and click on it. We're going to mark it given. You would be able to say where this IV was going in. So let's say left arm. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and fill this in from top to bottom. Or we're going to fill it in from all those 3 different things that I requested. So the first thing we have is infusion rate. Now this, they're going to need to know how to find this information. So the infusion rate, the first thing we need to do is it's 30 minutes. How much of an hour is 30 minutes? We have half an hour, so that's going to be 0.5, which is important to use in the formula. So then we're going to take that and we are going to do, it's diluted in the volume of 100 milliliters. So we're going to have the volume divided by time or hours. So we're going to have 100 milliliters divided by 0.5. That's why we had to know how much of an hour is 30 minutes, which is going to give us 200 milliliters per hour. So that's our first one. They're going to write that in. The next thing we're going to do is your drops per minute. And in here, this is a free text box, so they can write it however your school wants them to do it. But same thing, they're going to work through their formula themselves. So we're going to go ahead and to find the total drops, we're going to do the volume. So 100 milliliters again, because it's diluted in 100 milliliters of normal saline. So we're going to take the 100 milliliters and we're going to multiply it by the drop factor. And in my instructions, if you noticed, I did point out that they are going to be using IV sets that are 15 drops per minute. So we have that standardized for them. Okay, so we are going to do that 100 milliliters times 15 will give us a total of 1,500 drops. Now that we know how many drops in total, we need to divide it by the amount of minutes. In total, we are going to end up with 50 GTT divided by minutes. So this is important because it's the same thing. We need to incorporate all levels of the nursing or medication administration process when they're doing med math. When they're putting this in, we should be using proper abbreviations. So if you like them to use GTT as their abbreviation, they're going to go ahead and put that in. We should always be writing in the terminology that you want your students to use or that facilities near you use. So make sure that they're always keeping good terminology or appropriate for your setting and your region. Okay, so now let's do the concentration. So just so you know, I did do this a slightly higher concentration. I was just trying to make the numbers very, very easy to do in your head. So we're going to deal with our concentration, which is going to be the dose, which would be your 2 grams or 2,000 milligrams. And we are going to divide that by your volume, which is your 100 milliliters. And that is going to give us 20 milligrams per milliliter. Same thing, we want to make sure they're writing everything correctly in here. Once I filled it all out, I can hit OK. And so just so you know, I know we already did the math, but the same process would work for your lisinopril and your ibuprofen, where you can come in here and you can say it's given. We gave it orally, and we gave 3 tablets, 30 milligrams. so we can make all of our notes for any medications given. So if we do it this way, half tablet, 400 milligrams. If we do it this way, instead of students having a piece of paper and they're just going in and doing their calculations, they're going to be thinking through this very similarly to how they're going to be working with numbers in the real world. So when they do this in a nursing setting or in a healthcare setting, they're going to have to think about it in terms of medications, IVs, tablets, liquids, all of the things they're actually using. They're not just dealing with numbers. And that transition to understanding how it works in the real world can really help make this stick for students who struggle a little bit more. Okay, so I did all of those, and you can see at the end here, there's also an order for albuterol. We didn't touch it because it is not 9 o'clock, so we're not going to give that. This is also another place where if you do this as a lab instead of as homework, you can also practice your rights of medication administration. You can practice medication handling. You can practice your hand hygiene. You can practice only preparing one set of meds for one patient at a time. All of those good skills. So we wrap them all together. Okay, so I talked about 3 teaching ideas today. We have converting vital signs. We had your basic oral medications, and then we had IVs. If you use ChartFlow or whatever EHR you use, for us specifically, you can add multiple patients to an activity. So if you needed your students to get more practice, you could put 4 or 5 patients on an activity and assign it for homework. So your students have to go through and do all the medications, just the math for them, and put it in the MAR as their homework assignment. You can always come in here and grade it. If you did it as more of a capstone simulation, so after we cover med math in the classroom, we're going to do this whole thing as a simulation, make sure that they can convert their vital signs, that they can divide medication doses, and that they can calculate IVs. We could do this all in the sim lab, just like you would run the regular sim. They need to come in, decide what medications to give, record them in the MAR, interact with the patient as if they were real. All of that information will be saved. So during your debrief, all the information is in here that you can review it again. Okay, so I think that was our 3 lessons that you can use in your classroom. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat now, and I should be able to see them. If you have any questions about ChartFlow itself, you can also ask me or you can email us later. What I will do is after this is over, I will make sure to email everyone in the next few hours with the recording, as well as a link to our blog, which you can see here. Let me just show you real quick. Our blog has a post that was put up today for MedMath specifically, and it walks through some of that information. So if a student needs help working this out, they can go to our blog for more information. There are also some videos linked on there that are very useful for students that are struggling. Okay, let's see if I see any chats coming in. And I don't believe so. Okay, so in that case, oh, hold on. Okay. Okay, I will send you the links after. I don't see any questions right now, so thank you everyone for joining. Have a good day.